And we thank you so much for joining us. The conversation continues. Today, we've got a very, very special guest with us here, and she's going to be our conversation 9. And we welcome her, and we thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll just get right into it. So please introduce yourself.
First of all, thank you so much, Pee-wee, for having me on your show. It's such an honor, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that you chose me out of so many women and so many people in the industry to speak to. So I'm really glad to have been afforded the opportunity to chat with you today. So I'm Lukretia Booysen from the Koean Art Institute. I'm the founder of a Indigenous art gallery, and when I talk about Indigenous, I talk about Indigenous Khoisan, or Khoisan as it's more widely known, art gallery. And what we do is we focus on heritage preservation through arts. So we work with artists, not only in the form of actual, art as in sculptures and paintings and so forth, but we also work with artists who do literature, spoken word, and music. We do cultural exchange programs where we introduce Indigenous culture in a very contemporary fashion to the world through the work that we do.
Amazing. You mentioned something very important about preservation of, the heritage. Like, I'm very curious. Can you please speak on that? Why is it important that you preserve, especially the Khoisan heritage? I'm very curious about that. Can you just speak on that?
Absolutely, I can. It's sometimes it's not easy to talk about, but it's a reality that we face.
Yes, it is.
I think it's a story of Indigenous peoples across the world. But with regards to South Africa or Southern Africa, the Khoisan voice is the one voice that is not really prevalent or has not been given a platform, in contemporary South African society today. And there's a lot of political aspects that also contributes to why Indigenous people's stories are not heard. So the importance for us in what we do is basically giving the opportunity and giving the space for the world to get to know Indigenous peoples. And I'm talking about Khoisan people, Koena people, because what has been introduced to the world has been a more blanket approach and not necessarily the full scope of what Koena people are, the different tribes, the different languages. And so what we want to do, what we are currently doing, is basically giving a voice and giving the platform for Indigenous peoples from across South Africa, going into Zimbabwe, even the Northern Cape, Namibia, even in the Western Cape, just to tell their stories and share their stories through art.
It's amazing. And you mentioned something very important. The Khoisan people are, have been marginalized for some time in South Africa, and preserving the artwork is something amazing, because we want future generations to know that they've existed. So I love that, and I saw the work that you do. Oh my goodness, it's very beautiful. For a moment there, I was getting very emotional, because when last did I actually see I see these Indigenous people weighing. So that's something for me. It was very emotional, getting to experience them, and I really love that. Can you please just take us through your journey? Like, how did you start? Like, you woke up one morning, you just have this beautiful gallery. Like, how did you start Koena Art Institute?
Well, it did not start like that at all. So I went on my own journey of self-discovery. I wanted to get more in touch with my heritage. And, what I picked up was when I moved, because I stayed in the Western Cape and I moved to the North. I went to go and stay in Johannesburg, Pretoria. And what I discovered was in the North of Africa, people are very, very proud of their heritage and they celebrate it. And I wondered why my people that look like me do not do that. And I decided to obviously go on to my own journey of discovery and self-celebration. And I decided to take it to social media. And I decided to do this amazing shoot with my brothers and, so that some other Indigenous people that I knew. And we did a shoot that just celebrated us in our traditional regalia, and posted it on social media, and it blew up like nobody's business. And people were asking us questions about it from all over the world. And in that moment, I knew that I needed to do more. And with that came me being educated myself about, the situation, the actual situation of Indigenous cultures in South Africa. I then, because of all of the work that I started doing in Indigenous movements, and also just conscientizing through being educated, I decided that let me educate as I'm going along. And so through all of these movements, I was introduced to so much. And I started doing food, Indigenous food, introducing Indigenous food to contemporary markets, and doing events. And then I started clothing. And then at some point, I was then labeled as an Indigenous activist, not by myself, but by society. And I was like, okay. And then at some other point, an artist came to me, a very well-established artist who was represented by a very big art institution in South Africa. He asked me, would you please represent me? Would you please sell my art? And I was like, but I don't really know anything about selling art. And he was like, please just try. I will show you the ropes. I will. And he's I think right now he's 28 years in the industry. And he then became my mentor. That was Stanley Grootboom. And from there, my first artwork that I sold was 28,000 Rand in, I think, 4 days. And after that, I was like, okay, this is what it is. Then this is what I'm supposed to do. And in time, I started getting more and more artists coming to me. We started to do traveling exhibitions where we married Indigenous arts with Indigenous, how can I say, practices, language classes. We used to create a whole product offering around arts and Indigenous storytelling. And at some point, because we started doing these exhibitions around South Africa, I found a place in the Western Cape where I was originally from. And I did an exhibition here. It was one of the most successful exhibitions that was held in the building. And a couple of months later, the owner asked me, hi, Lukretia, I was thinking of getting something more permanent. I thought that if I choose someone, it has to be you. Would you consider opening a gallery in my building? And I thought about it for a couple of days, and here we are today.
Oh my goodness, that's so amazing. You take preservation, African preservation on another level. The fact that you also were introduced into the clothing, the food, and that's just taking it to another level. And it's something that's very important, especially that we are Africans. We need to continuously leave this mark on the continent, because our culture is what separates us, and we can't forget that. It's like our culture is basically our identity. So I love that you went into the clothing, you dug deep. You did not just focus on the art only, and that's like amazing. You just take it to the next level. Yeah, you are an Indigenous activist. Like, I love the work that you're doing. Like, you're taking it like, yeah.
Thank you. I think that cultural preservation, for me, it's because it's a part of my ancestry, and I felt that there was so much room and so much space, and so much untold stories that need to be told. And when you talk about Indigenous people, there's always the, how can I say, political connotation that's attached to it. And when I was approached to do art, I was like, this is the way that I could share beautiful stories without it being politicized, without it being questioned, and with it being welcomed. You understand? Because art is the one, universal language that people embrace. And I wanted people to embrace culture. I wanted people to experience and celebrate, the beauty of our culture with us. Not that we are telling this is our story and you have to, or this is, whatever the narrative or the stories are being told about, our people, but actually just sharing the beauty. And that for me is the most important thing, because I'm a very proud African. and I celebrate all African cultures. And I feel like it's so necessary. That's why I was so honored when you messaged me the first time, because I was like, yes, this is Africa come alive and Africa stand together. So yeah, it's just been such a magnificent journey, and I'm so honored to be able to share it with you today.
I'm so honored. I'm the one that's more honored. You also mentioned something about self-discovery. Like, I love that you went on this journey to actually discover, your heritage, where you come from, because that actually inspired you. I just love that whole
Absolutely.
I also love what you said about there's so many untold stories. That just resonated with me, because the whole point of me reaching out to so many creators, because I believe there are so many stories in Africa and we are not telling these stories. So when Lukretia Booysen is doing this, I'm like, oh my goodness, she's keeping Africa alive. Like, that's what it makes me so happy. It gives me so much joy in my heart that you keeping Africa alive. And we can look back 10 years from now and still remember that we have these indigenous people that we need to know about, and we need to know that they existed in Southern Africa. So this really is something
it's not only existed.
Yes.
We all still exist.
You exist, yes, and you're representing them right now. Yes.
Exactly. And the narrative that has been pushed is that our people all died and all of that.
Yeah.
But there's so many inaccuracies that have been told. And sometimes when you are not the narrator of the story, there are going to be inaccuracies. Unfortunately, that is the case.
And
you understand? And now, so we are giving our people, the platform to actually tell those stories. There's so much. It's like a lot of people think that the Khoisan all speak one language. There's so many languages.
There's so many.
There's so many languages. There's Nu, there's Korogobab, there's Kwekogobab, there's Damara, there is Khoe, there's Pun. There's so many, and there's a few that I don't even know about. You understand? There's so many different tribes, and these different tribes have different customs and different, ways in which they used to dress. Everybody did not dress the same or look the same. People think that it was all dark or light-skinned, small brown people, but there are so many different tribes who are so many different beautiful shades of brown, and people don't really know these stories. People have never been given, and sometimes I thank our ancestors, and I thank our lucky stars for 2021, and for where our universe is, and for the internet that allowed everybody to start contributing towards narratives, because with where society is today, the platform is open. There's no more censorship.
Yes.
You understand, especially with the internet. So people are able to tell those stories, which previously might not have been given the platform. Because if I think about it, if it wasn't for social media, this place would not have stood, because it was that one picture where I wanted to share and celebrate my heritage that made all of this possible. So when we talk about what is Khoe, or what is Indigenous South African, and what does it look like today, from the contemporary Indigenous person's perspective, you understand? Yes, we do celebrate, and we are holding very true to the fabric of the teachings of our culture, but it's like we as a people have changed, and we have progressed, and we have become more contemporary as well, like all other African cultures. No African tribe dresses the way they did in 19 or 1805. You understand what I'm saying? And the misconception that Indigenous people did not progress as well is a thing that we need to change. I personally believe that we were left with so much richness as African people, and it's like when you think about our ancestors, probably 100 or 200 years from today, we will be ancestors. And what are the stories that we are going to leave behind for the ones who are coming after us? So that for me is the most important thing. that all of us need to realize that there's a lot of layers to people, African people, all people, and we need to learn to how can I say, give all of those voices the platforms. So yeah.
I also love what you said about the platform to, you know, take part in changing the narrative, which is something very important. And I feel like it's each and every African's responsibility to take part in changing the narrative. Like we cannot allow the Western world to tell us our stories. We have it in us to tell these stories. And I love what you said about the richness that our ancestors have left such a rich culture. And, you know, many young people don't even know that it existed. So it's on us to continue to keep it alive. And, you know, when you are changing the narrative, it makes me so much, like it gives me joy in my heart, because that's what I intend to do always. Like we need to put Africa on the map by telling our own stories and stop allowing our stories to be told to us, because they're not true. You know, Africa has its own challenges, but it's not an Africa that is not rich with resources. Africa is rich with culture. So it's amazing. Can you please also share with us the inspiration behind the Legacy project?
Okay, so well, the Legacy project was a project that I actually was thinking about because of COVID. So during COVID, I lost my grandfather, who was like my dad. And you know, it's like in African homes, the grandparents usually take care of the kids. You know, so my grandfather passed away. He was like my father, and it was right at the start where the lockdowns were so hard, and his funeral was so awkward, and it was so fast. We couldn't really hug our families because we had to socially distance. We couldn't have an after celebration or even sit together just to commemorate or just to, you know, console each other. It was just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it was done, and we had to leave. And I was like, how do we celebrate our families and the loved ones that we've lost during the pandemic? And within the art space, the arts itself has also suffered tremendously.
Yes.
Because of not being able to perform, not being able to do exhibitions. Economically, people were unable to afford art. A lot of people were unable to afford art. And especially when you're living in South Africa, which is a marginalized, how can I say, predominantly marginalized country, people cannot necessarily afford art that much. But then I was like, how do we marry the two? And I was like, if you think about having a painting done of the person that you lost, that would be a beautiful, you know, memory that you can have. And, you know, at the same time, you'll be able to pay tribute, but also play a part in, you know, boosting the economy and assisting, you know, other families, because artists are people who have families, brothers, sisters, children, you know, so it's almost like, you know, almost like it was kind of like a ripple kind of project and a love project that I thought of, because not being able to celebrate the passing of someone that you love in dignity and the way that, you know, you would have, you know, generally would have done it, that's difficult. And obviously for me it was through art. How do you contribute towards creating something beautiful in a time where everything is so difficult? And that's where I thought legacy, because the person that my grandfather was, he was a legend, and he left a great legacy for me. He taught me, he guided me, he took care of me, and how do I pay tribute to him? And I was like, I'm in this space. I have access to, you know, so many artists that are so talented, and together we could help people pay tribute to the legacy of the people that they've lost.
My goodness. My goodness. Wow. I'm so moved.
That is the legacy through COVID, are able to commission artworks of the people that they've lost through life.
I'm so moved. Well, firstly, my condolences to your grandfather. And secondly, thank you for his life. Like, thank you, because as much as he's not with us, but thank you, because he taught you everything that you're doing today, and you're still going to be doing more. So thank you for his life, because his life indeed was an honor, because today Koena Art Institute exists because of him. So thank you for his life. And for me, it's a big, very important project that you're doing. COVID did so much. It robbed us human interaction. The fact that you mentioned that at the funeral you could not even hug your family members, you know, that too does really, you know, bother me. And my second last question to you, what are some of the challenges that you currently face?
Well, when it comes to the art industry as a whole, the arts industry has suffered. Yes, there are people who obviously are doing wonderfully, but we cannot deny that all of the people in the arts industry has suffered.
Yes.
And the thing is that with all of the challenges, the most challenging one, number one, is also the most important part, is selling art. But then second is keeping the strength together to still continue doing with all of the challenges, and, you know, costs are piling up. Everything is more expensive because of, you know, rises in how can I say, currencies. So it's like, you know, it's like things are just getting more and more and more every day. So and also keeping that spirit of continuing, that also gets challenging, because you're human, you know, sometimes things really go, and then you still have to, because especially when you're working with artists, you still have to do it. So there has been many challenges, but, you know, it's like, for me, I didn't want COVID to become an excuse for not still doing the best that we can, and not still giving the world art and bringing the beauty of art, you know, to everyone around us. So we have, regardless of COVID, we have been working. Even sometimes there would not be payment, but we've still been pushing and still being dedicated. Not only myself, but all of the artists that I work with have been extremely dedicated to still bringing art to the world and still coloring the world beautiful with our craft.
Amazing, amazing. And I like what you know, the truth in you mentioning that it's not been easy. Some days are very slopey, and like you said to me in the beginning when we had the conversation, like, yeah, at least it's not a bad entire year, it's just a terrible week or whatever. But it's like with being in the arts industry, some days are good, some days aren't so great, and you need to keep yourself alive because of this passion that you have, and because we've got people behind us that rely on us. You've got a team that's looking to you and is like, Lukretia, like you cannot be closing down. Like we
you
need
can imagine you can
yes.
imagine what that kind of pressure as well, you know,
and that's so much pressure, you know,
and we're close to the mountain and the ocean. Sometimes I feel like maybe I should just jump. I'm joking.
I get it. Like, I get it. No, I get it. But I get it.
You can't do it because
it gets a lot.
Yeah, you're a creator. It's what you do. Like, I'm a creative entrepreneur. For me, not being able to do what I do, I don't think I'd be able to survive, and I can't do anything else. It's like every other artist. People have studied, have master's degrees, and this is their vocation that they've dedicated their lives to. And not being able to practice it, not being able to share that skill, it was crazy, you know, dealing with so many artists and having to speak and still be able to communicate, understanding what the challenges are for all of us. It's been something else. It's been something else.
I can
it has, but
Yeah.
What can we do? What can we do? We still have to continue pushing. We still have to give our best. We still have to continue, bringing art to the world. And there's no other choice for us. This is what we want to do.
So true. I just love what she said about you're a creator, you create, and there's nothing else you can do. You meant for this. So I can totally relate. When you're a creator, there's nothing that you can do but create. But yeah, and this is my last question to you. Like, how do you want to be remembered?
Wow. No one has ever asked me that question before. Nobody has ever asked me, how do I want to be remembered? I think one day, and if my time is up, which I hope it's not going to be anytime soon, I hope that I would be remembered as a friend, a friend who gave and who shared, and someone who was not afraid. I want to be remembered as someone who created paths and who paved ways, and someone who did everything from a point of love and through positivity, and someone who contributed positively.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. It just resonates with me so much. Thank you so much for your time, Lucretia. Thank you for the work that you're doing. We need you. We need you. We need more of you. Thank you so much. You are changing the narrative for Africa, and that's what we need. We need this narrative to be shifted. I'm tired, of our stories being told to us. I'm tired. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I want our matters, our African matters, to be reported by us as Africans ourselves, because we live on this continent. We know this continent. This is our continent. This is our land. And that's why I'm always thanking every creative who comes here to say thank you so much for contributing to this industry. Thank you also for the artists that you have. Thank you so much. We know that, I'm just happy. I'm very happy. And I thank you so much for your time, the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need more of you. We need more of you.
Thank you for being a connector. Thank you for creating a platform where Africans from all over can connect. You understand? Thank you for taking the initiative. Thank you for taking time out of your day, to do what you do. And it is not only people like me, it's people like you. There's so many people, in the world who are trying to change the narrative and trying to tell the actual stories. Because it's like my mom always used to tell me that, it's like nobody will be able to tell your story the way that you can.
Yes.
Nobody will be able to tell your story the way that you can. So that is something that I kept with me. And today I'm actually practicing what she taught me. And I think when you say change the narrative, it sounds a bit, harsh. But for me, the most special part is being able to tell so many stories. I don't tell the stories. People tell the stories, from their perspective, their experiences, and that is the most important for me. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to have had this conversation with you. I always believe that Africans for African solutions. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Lucretia.